This is the American Highlands, a land of rolling hills, gentle valleys, and rocky streams that reaches from the Catskills to the Adirondacks, to the harbors of Maine, and down through the heart of New England. This is a land of great history and traditions which are at the seat of the American dream, the home of farmer, dairyman, lumberjack, and fisherman, and statesmen who shaped a nation. The ancestors of the hardy people who settled this region still populate its towns and rural areas, living close to the customs their forefathers knew 2 centuries ago. I'm Bob Beers, and I live here. I'd like to take you on a brief visit among some of my friends in the American Highlands to see some of the lovely mountains here, and the valleys and mountain streams, and to visit with some of its people. One of my neighbors is Forrest Moses. Not only does he have the best vegetable farm around here, but he's a pretty good painter, too. I owe Forrest a visit. Would you like to tag along?
He sat on a stool with a brush in his hand and told of such things he had seen. He dabbled in yellow and dabbled in brown and dabbled in wonderful green. These are the colors that fall from God's hand and cover my valley so fair, framed in the wonder of heavenly blue and bathed in the sweetest of air. Green is the color of grass in the spring, red is the color of toil, gray is the color that time passes by, fresh is the color of soil. These are the colors that fall from God's hand and cover my valley so fair, framed in the wonder of heavenly blue and bathed in the sweetest of air. White is the color of new fallen snow, frosty and wintry the chill. Bright are the colors of God's little men who wander about on the hill. These are the colors that fall from God's hand and cover my valley so fair, framed in the wonder of heavenly blue and bathed in the sweetest of air. Gold is the harvest of bountiful grain, pure is the fleece of the lamb, cold is the water that tumbles from my spring and quenches the thirst of the land. These are the colors that fall from God's hand and cover my valley so fair, framed in the wonder of heavenly blue and bathed in the sweetest of air.
Hello, Bob.
I see you're still hard at it.
Oh, yes, I'm doing a little painting now.
You
Yeah.
remember the first time that I ever came over here? I pulled up to your garage out here, and I came over to buy some potatoes from you.
Yes?
And you had a whole stack of potatoes in on the floor, and you didn't have them tied up. And you said to me, Bob, go back in the corner there and get some twine. It's in that cabinet. And I opened the cabinet up, and there was a stack of 128 paintings,
No fooling.
stacked up in that closet. And I said, Forrest, I said, do you paint? And you told me that you painted in the wintertime, and then when spring came, you were a farmer.
Well, that's true. I've had them around quite a while.
your painting reminds me so much of Grandma Moses, not because it's like hers, but because they're happy paintings. Now, I see among the different paintings some that tend to be dark colors.
Yes.
And but in looking at Grandma's paintings, they were always very bright with reds and greens and people doing things all over the place, and just happy things that people do.
Well, Grandma told me that when I don't know, I hadn't painted in them, but she says, don't put anything in a painting that a little boy or girl sees in the painting. They might be 4 or 5 years old and see that, and they'll go to bed at night and they'll dream about it or ask their dad or mother, what happened? That little boy fell off the sleigh or fell out of the tree. She says you can find plenty of things for him to do without putting anything in there that would make them worry them. No,
Yeah.
make them pleasing and try and tell a story. Oh, yes.
Well, now, you paint always from a man's point of view, and I notice Grandma Moses had a little different style. You saw lacy things,
Yes.
more flowers,
That's
things like
it.
that.
More flowers
And-
around our house, beautiful colors.
And usually things like apple squeezings and things like
Yeah.
that. And then you have pictures of sawmills and men at work and things like that. Here's this one here interests me because I once had an ice saw, and down here in the center of the picture you can see them cutting ice. Now, I notice they're not using a saw for us. What is that thing that they're using there, that long pole?
They had well, it looked like almost a cultivator, Bob, with teeth on it. And the
Yeah.
horse would draw that across the ice, or someone lead it, get it out nice and straight, and that would cut down about halfway through, well, 4 or 5 inches, and then they would bar it off. They didn't have to only just use the saw to start
It's
it.
like cutting glass with a glass
Yeah.
cutter, huh?
But it makes a nice story because in those times we didn't have refrigerators.
Yeah.
And they put up ice. They didn't cool too much milk with it, but they liked to make ice cream for picnics.
Well, now there's one I like. This is our time of year right now. This is
Yes, it's
Beautiful.
I like the spring pictures, Bob. And the little folks like trains in them. The older folks do, and I never put in a hand car up in there near the old station. A lot of people don't know what a hand car is. The section hands that took care of the track.
yeah.
And I pictured that painting as being around 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, because the little boys are bringing the cows in.
Yeah.
And now I couldn't show those cows in the barn in stanchials, so I showed the stanchials and bringing the cows in. It tells
Yeah.
the story.
Uh-huh.
And a little smoke in there adds to the picture.
That's a beautiful green color.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know what that is because I've done some of it.
Oh, yeah, I think most all boys are out in the country would get into
How do,
out Halloween, do things, you know, not be too mischievous, but do little things, and they have a lot of fun.
well, how do you suppose they got that wagon on top of the barn like that?
Well, boost it up there. 2, 3 get on the ladder, and they boost up a wheel and take it up the top, and then they'd boost that old machine. They'll do a lot of lifting when they're excited, you know. And then they put the wheels back on it again.
Did you ever do that?
No, I never. I've tried to plug up a few chimneys with old hay, make them smoke, you know, but not to put a wagon. But I've actually seen it.
Well, now, your paintings are always close to the land, close to the people. And it seems to me close to all this area out here
Yes.
that's in this particular landscape that you live in. And seems like Grandma's paintings were much that way, too.
It's true.
And you're a farmer. I bought some cantaloupe from you one time and took them down to an uncle of mine who's at the University of Connecticut. And he told me they were better than what they were raising at their agricultural station down there.
Well, I don't think what he's telling the truth, Bob. But Carl has tried, our sons tried to raise a good cantaloupe, and they're a very hard vegetable to grow. You can over-fertilize cantaloupes, and they won't have the sugar, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then if they get a lot of rain, the ground's too wet and heavy, they aren't as good. But you need them in your business as a selling point, you know, to draw the crowd.
These tomatoes that you grow, now you just set these out that you have. How many tomatoes do you get off of a stalk of tomatoes like these, one of these?
Well, let's put it this way. They're figured on a ton basis now. We've never weighed them, but I would say that if they do get good, perhaps you'll get an average of 20 tons to the acre.
20 tons?
20 tons. They're a wonderful vegetable. They're good for so many, and they're so hardy. I like to fool with tomatoes, but these melons are, oh boy, they give you a headache, but we just keep fussing with them. And,
well, they're wonderful.
I know.
Those that buy them from you really appreciate them.
Yes. Well, they better, or we'll quit raising them.
Well, Forrest, it's been wonderful talking with you, and
well, I know you want to get going, Bob, but it's so good of you to stop. You've got a lot of work to do.
I always enjoy myself when I come here, Forrest.
We enjoy seeing you. And you come on over whenever you get a chance, and I'll try and get over. Bob?
Go back to your work now and finish
and
that painting, and come out sometime and have some...
Thank you, Bob. You take care of yourself now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Bob.
These are the colors that fall from God's hand and cover my valley so fair, framed in the wonder of heavenly blue and bathed in the sweetest of air.
Oh, good Ale, thou art my darling, thou art my joy, both night and morning.
Give me a warm summer night, a cool cup of ale, and good companions, and I could sing the whole night through without singing the same song twice. My grandfather, George Sullivan, said that. Perhaps he was talking about people like these, a special breed. The lusty songs they sing have been brought here by way of our British ancestry, a kind of music and folklore that has been heard all over New England for at least 2 centuries, in lumber camps, harbors, taverns, and packet boats.
What a happy couple we would be. Oh, good Ale, thou art my darling, thou art my joy, both night and morning.
But the New England Contra Dance Orchestra, with its unique dance rhythms and its rare melodic flavor, has all but vanished. Of hundreds of such aggregations that once existed, to my knowledge, only one remains, the Canterbury Country Orchestra from Canterbury, New Hampshire. Listen carefully. It is a rare experience, and you may never hear this sound again.
people around here say that they had a muddy spring, but it's nothing like the spring we had back in the spring of '24. Of course, that was before they'd tarred the roads. And I recollect that spring I was sitting on the front porch reading a copy of the Bangor Observer when I spied an object working its way down the middle of the road up on the hill. I couldn't quite make out what it was. It looked like it might have been a cat, but it didn't have no tail. It weren't a bobtail cat, because there weren't none of them in town. And it weren't a muskrat, because they run from one stone wall to the other, never down the middle of the road like whatever this was doing. Well, I could see about a few minutes later, as it worked its way up even with the porch where I was sitting, that it was a gray felt hat. It looked just like Tuttle's, a gray fedora hat. He was the postman, and he looked as though he might be delivering the mail, and I looked down under the brim, and I could see Tut almost down to his mouth. Well, I said, Tut, it's kind of muddy walking, ain't it? And he said, heck, I ain't a foot, I'm a horseback.
Grand story, grand story. Oh, Martin said to his man, fine, man, fine. Oh, Martin said to his man, who's the fool now? Oh, Martin said to his man, fill thou the cup and I the can. Thou hast well drunken man, who's the fool now? I saw the man in the moon, fine, man, fine. I saw the man in the moon, who's the fool now? I saw the man in the moon, clouting on St. Peter's shoon. Thou hast well drunken man, who's the fool now? I saw the hare chase the hound, fine man, fine. I saw the hare chase the hound, who's the fool now? I saw a hare chase the hound, 40 miles above the ground. Thou hast well drunken man, who's the fool now? I saw a flea heave a tree, fine man, fine. I saw a flea heave a tree, who's the fool now? I saw a flea heave a tree, 20 miles out to sea. Thou hast well drunken man, who's the fool now? I saw a goose ring a hog, fine man, fine. I saw a goose ring a hog, who's the fool now? I saw a goose ring a hog, saw a snail bite a dog. Thou hast well drunken man, who's the fool now? Oh, Martin said to his man, fine man, fine. Oh, Martin said to his man, who's the fool now? Oh, Martin said to his man, fill thou the cup and I the can. Thou hast well drunken man, who's the fool now?
Oh, the worst old brig that ever did weigh sailed out of Harwich on a windy day, and we're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay. Oh, she was built in Roman times, slung together with bits of twine. We're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay. Oh, the skipper's half Dutch and the mate's a Jew, and the crew is 14 men too few. And we're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay. Oh, it's through the cockle travels to Cromer's Cliff, steering like a wagon with the wheel adrift. And we're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay. Oh, there's nothing in the galley, nothing in the hold. The skipper's turned in with a bag of gold. And we're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay. Oh, it's through the Humber and up the Tyne. Pump, you bastards, pump or drown. And we're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay. Our coal was shot by a Bixby crew, went to the bottom and it sank straight through. And we're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay. Oh, the worst old brig that I ever did weigh sailed out of Harwich on a windy day. And we're waiting for the day, waiting for the day, waiting for the day that we get our pay.
I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. And what do I care if it makes them ill? If it makes them terribly queer, I've a car, a yacht and an aeroplane, and I waters the workers' beer. Now, when I waters the workers' beer, I puts in strychnine, some methylated spirits, and a can of kerosene. Ah, but such a brew's so terribly strong, it would make them terribly queer. So I reaches me hand for the watering can, and I waters the workers' beer. I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. And what do I care if it makes them ill? If it makes them terribly queer, I've a car, a yacht and an aeroplane, and I waters the workers' beer. Now, a drop of good beer is good for a man when he's tired, thirsty and hot. And I sometimes have a drop myself from a very special pot. For a strong and healthy working class is the thing that I most fear. So I reaches me hand for the watering can, and I waters the workers' beer. I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. And what do I care if it makes them ill? If it makes them terribly queer, I've a car, a yacht and an aeroplane, and I waters the workers' beer. Now, ladies fair, beyond compare, be you maiden or wife, spare a thought for such a man who leads such a lonely life. For the water rates are frightfully high, and the meth is terribly dear, and there ain't the profit there used to be in watering the workers' beer. I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. I am the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. And what do I care if it makes them ill? If it makes them terribly queer, I've a car, a yacht and an aeroplane, and I waters the workers' beer.
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, it will be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we will not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning, we come round right.
Many men have tried to find a utopia and failed. I guess the reason is that there can be no such thing as a utopia. A group of religious visionaries who called themselves Shakers worked for 170 years trying to create a utopia here at the Hancock Shaker Village. Now preserved in its beautiful Berkshire mountain setting, the remaining buildings and the priceless articles inside can be seen by any visitor in the summertime. We're going to take the time to look at the village and see the memorable heritage their craftsmen, designers, and architects have left our American culture.
Living souls, let's be marching on our journey to heaven with our lamps trimmed and burning with the oil of truth. Living souls, let's be marching on our journey to heaven with our lamps trimmed and burning.
The new earth, which the Shaker Society envisioned, was to be a new heaven. Desiring communal love, they separated themselves from the world around them to achieve a sort of Shaker utopia by practicing celibacy. And since as a result, no children were born to Shakers, it became necessary that all new converts must come from the outside community. Thus, this principle, which meant so much to their culture, also predestined its decline.
Let us join the heavenly chorus and unite with our parents. They will lead us on to glory in the path of righteousness.
Life in the Hancock Shaker Village centered in the brick residence building built in 1830. Elders and eldresses, as they were called, and brethren and sisters made this their home. In 1830 and 40, one side of this third floor hall of the brick dwelling was filled with rooms like this one. At times there were 3 or 4 men in a room. The beds have wheels, as you may have noticed, typifying the Shaker practice of designing furniture for efficiency in housekeeping. The last resident at Hancock was a woman by the name of Eldris Fanny Esterbrook. Fanny passed away in 1960, and this is the room where she slept for most of her life. When visitors came here to the Shaker Village in the last century, they often remarked about the austerity of the surroundings and the simplicity of it all. One commented that everything was just impeccably kept. It gave a kind of an air of refinement to the whole thing, to the bedchamber, and even a sort of luxury pervades this room. Each Shaker community was liberally provided with children, for they were taken in both as orphans and as members of families converted to the Shaker way. The children's order was supervised by carefully selected caretakers. In pleasant shops like these, citizens of the village pursued their various skills. Steady application to work was an essential part of the Shakers' way of life. Most of the sisters' clothing was made in such rooms as this, under the direction of the deaconesses. Uniformity of dress served to mark the Shakers as people divorced from the world. Although the styles of their garb was prescribed to some extent earlier, it was not until 1825 that rules pertaining to dress were made definite and binding. This uniformity was maintained until after the Civil War, when it was gradually abandoned, despite the efforts of the ministry to enforce it. Basket making was a prominent Shaker industry. Made of split black ash, which was woven around wooden forms, the Shakers' baskets were produced in countless different sizes and shapes, each carefully designed for the purpose it was intended to serve. This room in the sisters' shop was devoted to the packaging of herbal medicines, one of the Shakers' most important enterprises. Shakers were pioneers in this and may be accounted the founders of the American pharmaceutical industry. In such shops as this, the Shaker brethren produced those items for which the sect is best remembered today, its furniture and wooden utensils. The Shakers produced chairs as well as other kinds of furniture from early in their history. But in the 1870s, their chair industry assumed particular prominence through the efforts of Robert Wagon, an elder of the community of Mount Lebanon, New York. Under his direction, the production of chairs was standardized. Catalogs were issued, and the output was widely marketed both to the wholesale and retail trade. You know, I've been around barns all my life, and I must say that I've never seen a barn that is as beautifully built and as efficient as this one. The wagons come up a ramp from the outside and come in here, and there's a circular track that goes around the entire circumference of the barn. The wagons can ride in here and go around. Now, the Shakers even designed a specially built wagon with a tilted bed, and this wagon could come in and they could slide the hay right off into the mow. But can you imagine that this barn was built almost 150 years ago? 1826. And it's a marvel of modern efficiency. But there's more to this. If you'll come down on the next level, I'll show you some more interesting things about this marvelous barn. This is the ground level of the barn, and the farmhand works in this area right here, and also he can go all the way around the circumference of the barn, and he has at his left the hay mow, and on his right the stanchions for the cattle. Now these stanchions would accommodate 52 cattle, and they all faced inward all the way around the barn. The farmhand could shovel in hay here and put it in front of the stanchions, and the cows could eat. It was all so convenient that just one single farmhand could handle this whole barn load of cattle. The Shakers were superb farmers, and there's no question at all but that this barn, this unique structure, affected the architecture of barns all over the United States. With its many levels, its unique hay mow with the ventilation system up through the middle. Boy, I sure wish that when I was a kid I'd have had a barn like this to work in. I think that maybe someday I'm going to have one. The Shakers didn't find their utopia, but in the 170 years of their short existence here, they left a challenge for all Americans. For here in the American Highlands, they sowed the seeds for countless new industries, created works of incredible beauty and efficiency, and left their indelible mark on the entire American culture. It would seem that wood, somehow, is vital to a man's nature. Since creation, he has used it for tools, protection, housing, transportation, even fuel, not to mention his aesthetic involvement in its natural beauty, to shape and polish the grain creatively until it has become a deeply satisfying work of art. Lumbering is still a way of life in the American Highlands. Perhaps the technique of cutting a tree has changed. Modern motor-driven chainsaws have now replaced the time-honored crosscut saw. But men still holler timber when the tree is about to fall.
Timber!
My companions are Grant Rogers, whose home is in the legendary New York Catskills. With him are Sarah Cleveland and Larry Older, who were both brought up in the lumbering traditions of the Adirondack Mountains just north of here. The colorful lore of the woodsman is as natural as a cool drink of water, and once a tree has fallen, there may be time out for a favorite song or story. Well, it took all four of us to get this monster tree down here, Larry. You've made your life up here in the Adirondack areas north of us. I'm wondering if, in your experience, you ever learned the woodsman's handshake.
Why, I believe I have. Let's see.
That's the woodsman handshake.
Yeah, you don't happen to know one, do you?
Hey, Bob, that makes me think of one here. You ever hear of the farmer's handshake?
No, I don't think I did.
Milk me. You.
Larry, how about a song from the Adirondacks?
All right, I think,
Or a story or something like that?
well, yes. A bunch of the boys was sitting around in a little depot up there in Blue Mountain Lake one night, and they named the depot Township 19. Now remember, the building is Township 19. And Pat Moynihan was one of the boys sitting there. When I say Dandy Pat, you'll know that was Pat Moynihan. You heard of him from North Creek. Well, they was sitting around there, and this one started, and I don't know whether he had help to get it going or not, but he started off, and he says, "Come all you young people, wherever you may be, come set yourselves down and listen to me. My story I'll tell you without a mistake of the racket we had around Blue Mountain Lake. Dearie, down, 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 dearie, down. There's the Sullivan brothers and Big Jimmy Lou, myself and Mose Gilbert, Dandy Pat too. A fine bunch of fellows as ever was seen, and we lumbered for Griffin on Township 19. Dearie, down, 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 dearie, down. Bill Mitchell, you know, he kept our shanty, and as mean a damn man as ever you'd see. He lay round the shanty from morning till night. If a man said a word, he was ready to fight. Dearie, down, 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 dearie, down. One morning before daylight, Jim Lou, he got mad. Knocked hell out of Mitchell, and the boys was all glad. His wife, she just stood there, and the truth I will tell, she was tickled to death to see Mitchell catch hell. Dearie, down, 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 dearie, down. Old Griffin just stood there, that grizzly old drake. Some thought a hand in the racket he'd take. One of the boys went to lead him away. Let him fight and be damned, I have nothing to say. Dearie, down, 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 dearie, down. You may sing of your fashions and styles to be seen, but there's none can compare to the cook in 19. She's short, thick, and stout, and without a mistake, the boys call her Nellie, the belle of Long Lake. Dearie, down, 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 dearie, down. And now, my good people, adieu to you all. Christmas is coming and I'm heading for Glens Falls. And when I get there, I'm going on a spree, for when I've got money, the devil's in me. Dearie, down, 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 dearie, down. That's it.
Grant, do they have any black flies down in the Catskills?
I reckon they do. I reckon they do. That made me think. Here a while ago, there was a couple mosquitoes flying over a football team. One mosquito says, look at that big fat boy down there. Says, let's get him. He'd make good feed. So they swooped down and they picked him up. And flew a little ways with him, a couple of miles, and they stopped and they let him down. One mosquito says, what'll we do, take him on home or eat him here? No, let's eat him here. Said, take him home. The big ones will get him away from us.
Sing us a song from down in your area.
Well,
Grant.
I will. There's one that comes from, well, I guess it's appropriate for all lumber ones. And you can join in on the chorus of this.
Right. What's it going to be, Grant?
It's A Lumberin' We Will Go, I think the name of it, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Ye mighty sons of freedom, who range the mountains o'er, come all ye gallant lumber boys and listen to my song. On the banks of the sweet Saranac, where its limpid waters fall, and we'll range the wildwoods over and once more a lumberin' go. Once more a lumberin' go, and we'll roam the wildwoods over, and once more a lumberin' go. To the music of our axes, we'll make the woods resound, as many a tofty, lonely tree comes tumbling to the ground. Then around our warm campfires we will sing at night and play, while we'll roam the wildwoods over and once more a lumberin' go. Once more a lumberin' go, and we'll roam the wildwoods over and once more a lumberin' go. You may talk about your parties and your plays. Just think of us poor lumber boys go jouncing on our sleighs. But we ask no better pastime than to hunt the buck and doe. Then we'll roam the wildwoods over and once more a lumberin' go. Once more a lumberin' go, and we'll roam the wildwoods over and once more a lumberin' go. When winter is over and the ice-bound streams are free. We will drive our logs to Glens Falls, and we'll haste our girls to sea. With plenty to eat and plenty to drink, then back to work we'll go, and we'll range the wildwoods over, and once more lumberin' go. Once more lumberin' go, and we'll range the wildwoods over, and once more lumberin' go.
Must have had real hectic times in those days. Gee, I missed all that. I was only a kid when all that was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were rough days too.
I guess they must have been.
If they could call it fun, sleeping in the cold and working in the wet and in the snow, but
Over
it's
in
nice
the-
to look back about.
Over in the Catskills, there was a bunch of lumbermen out in the woods. They liked their whiskey pretty good, and of course they had all moonshine stuff in jugs. And the wood foreman, he was death on drink. He swore that he'd fire the first man that he seen, or any sign of drink. Well, of course these fellows had their jugs in the woods. They worked 2 men in a gang, like these boys that were sawing down this tree here a while ago. And
we need 2 in a gang.
Need 2.
Yeah.
They could have used 2 more.
They did, and well, they kept their whiskey. There was a big hemlock stump, pretty well rotted and decayed, but it's hollow inside, and they kept a gallon jug of whiskey hid out of sight in this stump. Well, they just had a big swig out of this jug, and one of them looked down the roadways, and they saw the boss coming. They slipped that jug down there out of sight and went cutting the trees. Well, the boss got up there and got looking at them, and just as one of the trees came over, they hit that stump and split it about half in two, and there sat this gallon jug about half full of whiskey, right, the boss looking right at it. There, see. Well, he was a man of his word. He fired every one of them, but next day he hired them all back.
Well, that was bad.
I thought he was going to say he drank the whiskey after he got rid of them.
They used to use all manner of tricks to get whiskey into the woods without getting caught. And one of the tricks was to buy a brand new lantern before it had ever had any oil in the tank and fill that with whiskey. And one fellow was using that trick and he didn't get caught. And then he got to be a hog and he bought a 2-gallon can that was factory marked kerosene, painted and all fancy, and he was carrying his booze into that, see? Well, some way or other he was out for a while, and that can got taken out by a tote team, and they brought it back full of kerosene. Well, he got back, and he'd forgotten whether he left any whiskey in his kerosene can or not, and he got in the bunk at night, he reached under, and he hefted it, and it had some weight, and he smiled himself there in the dark, and everybody else was listening, because they knew what had happened, see? He unscrewed that quiet because he's trying to sneak it without the threads making a noise, and he got it out. He took a good long draught and spit kerosene all over the bed. He said, "Who the hell put kerosene in my kerosene?"
Why don't you sing us a song?
How about Bunny Bun Boy?
Wonderful.
I haven't sung that in a long time. What had you for your dinner, my bonny bun boy? What had you for your dinner, my comfort and joy? An eel fried in butter, mother, make my bed soon, for I'm sick unto my heart and I want to lie down. What will you leave your father, my bonny bun boy? What will you leave your father, my comfort and joy? My house and my lands, mother, make my bed soon, for I'm sick unto my heart and I want to lie down. What will you leave your brother, my bonny bun boy? What will you leave your brother, my comfort and joy? My horse and my saddle, mother, make my bed soon, for I'm sick unto my heart and I want to lie down. What will you leave your mother, my bonny bun boy? What will you leave your mother, my comfort and joy? The gates of heaven opened, mother, make my bed soon, for I'm sick unto my heart, and I want to lie down. What will you leave your wife, my bonny boy? What will you leave your wife, my comfort and joy? The gates of hell wide open, mother, make my bed soon, for I'm sick unto my heart, and I want to lie down.
Oh, the bulging Irishman in Dublin, he did well, sure, and he stubbered down to Dublin, some eggs for to sell, and he stepped into a barber
One
shop.
song leads to another, and songs lead to stories, and we could listen to them until dark. But some friends of mine are having a shivaree this afternoon, and we have to be there. Maybe you've never been to a shivaree, or horning, as they sometimes call it here in the East. A shivaree is a kind of a rural surprise party. When a couple gets married, they sometimes spend the wedding night in the home of a friend. The friend, in turn, has donated and vacated his house. It's all supposed to be a big secret, but really isn't. The couple would be deeply hurt and disappointed if there was no shivaree, and the guests would be greatly frustrated if they didn't know where to go. So you see, it all works out to the advantage of everyone. A proper noisemaker for a shivaree is anything, absolutely anything that will make a loud noise. Pots and pans, trumpets, cows' horns, bells, or shouting. It is then supposed that the newlyweds will come to the upstairs window and look appropriately surprised. It is even likely that they will hurry down to greet the guests with cider and goodies that were prepared well in advance. When I was a kid, I remembered the refreshments much longer than I remembered the bride and groom, and I didn't give a hang about the dancing and music that followed.
Come on, everyone, let's have a dance. Form your lines for Virginia Reel. Line up. Straighten up your lines. Ready now? Forward and back. Right hand round. Left hand round. Both hands round.
The orchestra you are hearing, which uses hammered dulcimer in addition to fiddle, is an unusually fine group. This kind of music, which had almost died out, is now reviving rapidly. This is a courting game called a lover's tangle. The problem is to solve the puzzle of the string, how to get apart without removing it from the wrists. The whole purpose of a Frenchman's nose is to get perilously close to a girl without touching her, and vice versa. If you are really skillful, you can transfer it from one nose to the other with nasal dexterity.
Form an arch and through you go.
Here is a little courting toy called the Ship of Love. As you will notice, it has a vessel, 2 masts, and a rigging. A small ball of corn pith rests on the smokestack. By close cooperation and a lot of hot breath, a couple can very neatly hang it up on the rigging.
First couple sashay. Reel the set.
As durable as these forest-covered ridges are the traditions of their inhabitants, rugged men and women whose ancestors created a nation, whose children today inherit a cultural treasure, the gift of living in a truly unique area of the world. Wherever you live, you are in the center of your own universe. Very likely, your heritage, your own land, would seem as strange and wonderful to others as this, the American Highlands.